In almost every casual FF10 playthrough, Kimahri gets the same treatment. Benched the moment Orange joins the party, sidelined throughout most of the game, and completely forgotten by the time Rico comes into play. He has no dedicated role, no obvious niche, and most players treat him like a placeholder or a second-hand Rico clone. So I wanted to answer one question. What happens if Kimahri has no choice but to save Spira alone, locked to his own sphere grid the entire game? Everybody else runs, defends, or just gets out of the way. Welcome to the worst idea I had in a while. And the challenge wastes no time getting started. Before we even reach Killiga, Sin attacks the boat, and Kimahri gets his first real test in the form of Sin's Fin, a somewhat threatening early boss, made worse by the fact that this is literally the first battle Kimahri can even participate in. But before we can take care of the actual boss, we have to deal with the Sin scales first. We have 3 of them on the deck which will respawn if we beat them all, and there is a little exploit we could use in theory here. Since the Sin scales always respawn, we could farm them infinitely in order to get some big early experience. The only problem with that, with us only being able to use Kimahri, and the enemy's Spine's attack doing over 200 damage, we won't last long enough to make it worthwhile. Because of this, we just beat the first 2 Sin scales and then leave the last one alive to reduce the incoming damage before focusing on the Fin. Since we can only attack it with ranged attacks, the only way to inflict damage on the enemy is by using Lancet. And while this only does roughly 80 damage per hit, Kimahri also gets healed with it in the process, which means that we don't have to worry about the incoming damage from the Sin scale any longer. We just continue on using Lancet against the Fin until it's down, and just like that, the first boss of the challenge is done. Up next is the underwater fight against another Sin scale, and since Kimahri isn't available here, this is a good time to establish one of the ground rules. Any fight where Kimahri cannot participate gets treated as a regular no sphere grid run, but since these moments aren't really what the challenge is about, we'll be skipping over most of them. With that out of the way, Killiga gets annihilated by Sin, and we head into the Killiga Woods next. In the woods we get the tutorial about Lancet and Kimahri's ability to learn enemy skills, and this is also a good opportunity to go over Kimahri's overdrive options. With Lancet, Kimahri can learn a total of 12 different overdrives. The majority of them are classified as rank 3, meaning they carry the same turn delay as a regular attack, unlike other overdrives that can push the character's next turn back far enough for enemies to act earlier than anticipated. This is especially important seeing as CTB manipulation is going to be a very important strategy in this challenge. We learn Seed Cannon from the Ragora, which has a base damage of 33 compared to the regular attack 16, so slightly more than double the damage of a regular attack. Seed Cannon also ties with Thrust Kick for highest physical damage among Kimahri's overdrives, but since it is ranged, it is the better option overall, making it our go-to for physical overdrive situations throughout the entire run. So getting it this early in the challenge is more helpful than it might seem at first. With Kimahri also getting his first sphere level here, let's take a look at the sphere grid and why being locked down to his own sphere grid section is going to be one of the most brutal restrictions for this challenge. This is a screenshot of the entire sphere grid. Characters usually travel along the path of their grid section, increase their stats, and learn new skills. For example, this is the sphere grid section of Yuna. As you can see, a decently long path with lots of nodes to go through. Now compare this to Kimahri's grid, and I think it is pretty easy to see why this is going to become a huge issue the deeper we get into the challenge. Kimahri's grid is exceptionally short, so we're only getting a very limited number of stat increases, and abilities like Scan, Chinks, and Extract Mana, which are barely going to see any use. In theory, we also have Ultima here, but with it being behind 3 level 4 locks, we don't get to use it until very late into the game, and considering Kimahri's magic stat is pretty low as well, there really are not a lot of options to make good work of it. With all the theory covered, let's get into how this actually plays out in the Killiga Woods. We will skip Lord Ochu for now, since there is no way we can get through it with Kimahri's current stats. Lord Ochu is an optional boss, and we don't need the potential HP sphere drops immediately, so we will come back for it later when we can take care of it without problems. The majority of random encounters in the woods are manageable even in a solo setup. We usually take care of Killaby with Lancet first, since we don't have enough accuracy to hit it with physical attacks. The killer bee can inflict poison with its attacks, and this can quickly become fatal in a solo setting, as it will inflict 25% of the character's max HP as damage after every action. Deinonychs are our second priority, as its attack can either inflict sleep or petrify, two more things we want to avoid. We will generally prioritize targets that can inflict ailments throughout the run, since those can easily end in a game over if we have no chance of clearing them. The yellow element is annoying since it has sky-high defense, so we have to use Lancet here. And while it does about 200 damage with each attack, Lancet heals some of it back, and with it being a rank 2 ability, we can get several casts in between the enemy's attacks, making it one of the safer encounters in the woods despite the defensive bulk. Single Ragora fights are generally safe as well, since we just attack the enemy until it's down, though we usually run from a double Ragora fight early on since the incoming damage can become overwhelming very quickly. We want to get a couple of sphere levels here to get our stats up for the upcoming boss battle, so we will stay in the woods and grind for a bit. We're heading up the northwestern part of Kimahri's grid first, since we have a good mix of all kinds of nodes there, including a couple of attack nodes to boost Kimahri's damage. Once Kimahri reaches 23 strength, we should have enough damage output for what's ahead. We also equipped the serum armlet from an earlier killer bee encounter, giving us poison ward going into the fight, which turns out to be very well timed. But before we are able to attack the boss, we need to take out the tentacles first to reduce the amount of targets that can hit us. Since we come in with a full overdrive, we seed cannon the first tentacle to take it out in a single hit, and then go for the second one with normal attacks, which is already close to a one-shot as well. The Sin Spawn will use Psy as long as it's in its shell, but with the attack only doing a little more than 100 damage, this is not an issue for now due to Kimahri's higher max HP. As soon as the second tentacle is down, we focus on the body, and only 2 attacks later, it opens up its shell, and this is where the dangerous part starts. The Sin Spawn will now attack with Venom, Water, and Staccato, and even though we equip Poison Ward on Kimahri, we still get poisoned by Venom the first time around, since the armor only gives us 50% protection against the status. A follow-up Water luckily does less than 100 damage, so we can clear the status without issues, and then go back on the attack. Staccato does a bit more than 100 damage, but since it doesn't come with any other ailments or anything, this is manageable as we can heal up with potions in between attacks if needed. A few more attacks are enough, and we finish the boss off with a nice seed cannon. The grinding definitely paid off here, though in hindsight we might have slightly over-prepared given how the battle played out. Having Poison Ward definitely helped, and with that we can move on to Killiga Temple. We make sure to grab the Destruction Sphere chest in the Cloister of Trials, as it contains the red armlet, which is a very useful armor for Kimahri that halves the damage of fire, ice, and lightning attacks due to the triple ward on it. With our new Aeon obtained that we will almost never use with one specific exception later on, we head back to Killiga and board the ship to Luca. In Luca we have to try and track down Sir Oren, but before we do that, we buy a Thunder Spear for Kimahri from a walkout that we will put to use shortly, and also grab all the chests around town, including a Magic Sphere and an HP Sphere. While we could use those to increase our stats, we will hold on to them for now since we want to prioritize other stats given the low amount of empty nodes that we can fill. Kimahri gets into a confrontation with Valoran, Suspiran, and Yankee, which includes a picture-perfect uppercut, and Yuna gets kidnapped by the Albad, leaving us with a rescue mission before the semifinals are over. And those semifinals are going to take a while. Technically, you only need to defeat all mandatory Machina battles on each dock before getting to the Albad ship, but we're going to stay here and grind random encounters for a long time. The Machina workers have X potions as a rare drop, and this is our only way to farm them in this challenge run setup. The chance of a rare drop happening is 12.5%, giving us a somewhat reasonable chance per encounter, since they always spawn in packs of 2. This is also where the Thunder Spear we bought from Owaka before comes into use. While the workers have 100 defense, which is huge for this part of the game, they're also weak to lightning attacks, so with the Thunder Spear equipped, we can take them down within 2 attacks. On top of this, the workers also have a chance to drop armor with elemental SOS nulls on them, so we want to make sure to get one for each element to be prepared for a specific boss fight later on. In addition, the workers also have a chance to drop elemental weapons, giving Kimahri access to all elements going forward. Combined with the experience we get from battle, this grinding session accomplishes several things at once, so we should be set up well for the upcoming challenges. This grind took roughly 3.5 hours though, with the game running in the background for stretches. It was probably closer to 2.5 of active play. Either way, we have now maxed out our X potions, so we equipped the bright armlet on Kimahri for Dark Ward, and then head to the Elbad ship to battle the Obliterator. In a casual playthrough, you're supposed to power up the crane by casting Thunder at it to quickly end the boss fight, but in a solo Kimahri setup, this is not going to be a thing, so we need to beat the boss the casual way by smacking it into oblivion. Just like the workers before, Obliterator is weak to lightning attacks, so with the Thunder Spear we deal close to 600 damage per hit. The boss will occasionally counter physical attacks with Blind Ball, and while we have Dark Ward on Kimahri, this only provides a 50% blind resistance, so the status will still occasionally land. Since it only lasts for a single turn, we will use Lancet on the following attack if that happens, and then continue hitting the boss with physical attacks. Blitzball Rush hits for 10 times in total, but since it targets random characters, the damage spreads out pretty well as long as our other two party members are still up. Once Kimahri is by himself, he takes between 250 and 300 damage each turn, depending on how often the attacks misses, but seeing as we also max out our high potions during the worker grind, we can easily heal up with them when Kimahri gets low on HP. One thing to keep in mind is that Obliterator's agility goes up the further its HP drop, so there are moments when the boss gets 2 attacks in a row. Luckily, Kimahri's HP are rather high due to the grind before, so this isn't any dangerous and we can easily heal back if needed. We continue on attacking with the real protagonist of the challenge until the boss eventually goes down. With Yuna saved, we can give Waka the signal to go for the final attack to secure the Aurochs the victory. With the Aurochs making it into the finals, we now have to play the Luca Gores and we need to make sure we come out on top. Winning the tournament nets us a strength sphere that we can use to further power Kimahri, which he is going to desperately need since there aren't a lot of strength nodes left on Kimahri's sphere grid portion. Despite going down early, we take the lead before halftime and hold on through the second half to claim the tournament victory, netting Kimahri a good power boost via the strength sphere. There is also the other water segment with the Sahagin and the Garuda fight in the stadium, but since Kimahri is not involved in either, we will be skipping over both. With the tournament concluded, Orange joins the party, and we head out towards Mian High Road. During the first bomb encounter, we use Lancet to learn self-destruct, though I am not sure why I'm even going for this, as using it would result in an automatic game over. I suppose I'm just too much of a completionist to skip anything. Either way, the random encounters here follow the same priority system as Killiga Woods earlier. We take out everything that can inflict the party with ailments first, like the Floating Eye that can confuse party members, or the Mian Fang that can inflict sleep. White elements only deal around 130 damage thanks to a triple ward armlet, and are dealt with Lancet, which recovers more HP than the enemy can damage Kimahri. Bombs can be one-shot with an ice spear equipped, and in those battles specifically, we look out for equipment drops. All weapons in FF10 have a base damage of 16, but weapons dropped by bomb enemies have a base damage of 18, effectively increasing our damage by 11%. I am not sure if this is intentional or a bug in the game, but either way, we want to make sure to get a fire spear drop before we continue on. The only encounters we need to watch out for are the ones that contain dual horns. Not only are they very tanky and we usually need 3 hits to get them down, but they also hit pretty hard physically. Gore in particular deals close to 500 damage per hit. Still, we want to make sure to Lancet them at least once, since we can learn Fire Breath from them, which is a base 24 AoE fire spell which also ignores magic defense. This won't be a significant damage source considering Kimahri's base magic is rather low, but especially against bigger groups of flyers that are hard to hit with physical attacks, this could still become useful. We still haven't gotten a fire spear drop from the bombs, but since it is not needed immediately, we continue on until we reach the travel agency and have to go up against the Chocobo Eater next. While winning this encounter is technically optional, we still want to give it our all because if we are already here, might as well. We need to try to knock the Chocobo Eater down while making sure not to get pushed off the cliff ourselves. The boss has a fire weakness, so we make sure to have a regular fire lance that we got during the workers grind earlier equipped on Kimahri. In order to knock the enemy down, we need to deal 1500 damage, and with Kimahri opening up with 2 critical hits dealing almost 2000 damage each, this is looking promising. Regular attacks hit for roughly 1000 damage, so while we need 2 attacks to knock the enemy down, this is still not a problem. We do get a little unlucky as we get pushed back by the boss several times in a row, resulting in Kimahri almost getting pushed off the cliff, but luckily Chocobo Eater is almost down by this point, so one more attack is enough to secure the victory. With the Chocobo Eater defeated, we gain access to a Chocobo, so we grab all the items only accessible by Chocobo on the way. Before we move on to Mushroom Rock Road, we continue grinding bombs since we really want the weapon drop before heading into the next section. The chances for the Fire Spear to drop are not very high, as they have a 50% chance to drop equipment, then another 50% for it to be a weapon, and roughly 40% for it to be assigned to Kimahri, as the game waste drops based on who lands the killing blow, which comes out at a total of 10%. While this sounds like it may take a while, we can speed things up with 4 times speed and frequent encounters, and within the first 5 minutes of the grind, we get our desired drop, so this happened much faster than I anticipated. Hopefully that is not a bad sign for future grinds to come. Either way, with our newly acquired Fire Spear, we can now continue on to Mushroom Rock Road and head towards Operation Mi'ihen. As with earlier areas, we again prioritize all enemies that can inflict ailments on us, especially Eperia, whose attack can petrify the party, which is an instant game over in a solo setting considering we don't have any protection against petrify yet. The triple ward armlet we got in Killiga is still putting in a lot of work as well, since there are a lot of enemies that are attacked with either fire or electricity attacks. In the last area, we get a Serene armlet from the chest, which comes with Dark and Berserk ward, which we will definitely keep for a very specific boss fight later on. For elements, we can still use Lancet to take them down, and flyers are taken care of with Seed Cannon if Kimahri's overdrive bar is full, or just by hoping for some good luck during physical attacks, and everything else usually goes down in a single hit. Garuda is the only tanky enemy in this area with 4000 HP, so we need 5 hits to take it down, but with the enemy not doing more than 100 damage per attack, this is not an issue, and once we reach the command center, Operation Mi'ihen is underway, and we have to battle Sinspawn Gui next. Gui is often the first bigger roadblock in challenge runs, but we should be prepared well, so I'm not overly concerned. Our strategy here is to get rid of the arms first, deal full damage to the body, while using Lancet on the head every time it starts moving in order to avoid its venom attack. Kimahri has enough strength to one-shot the arms, so this makes things much more comfortable already. The body alternates between Demi, which reduces everybody's HP by 25%, and a regular physical attack, dealing around 650 damage. With the head moving regularly, we unfortunately only get 1 or 2 hits on the body before the arms respawn, but as long as we watch our HP, we should be good. Speaking of which, we need to Lancet the head to prevent venom from happening, and right after the boss follows up with Thunder, and the physical attack without us getting a turn in between, and with Kimahri only having 700 HP at this point, this is enough to give us the first game over of the challenge. For attempt number 2, I decided to completely ignore the arms and body at first, and solely focus on getting the head down while keeping Kimahri healed up with high potions to make sure he has enough HP to tank all incoming attacks. Lancet only does around 80 damage, and with the head having 4000 HP, this is a slow process, but luckily Seed Cannon is ranged, so once Kimahri's overdrive bar is full, we can deal 3000 damage in a single hit. After that, it's just a couple of more Lancets to take the head down, and with that, the most dangerous part of the fight is behind us. With the only incoming attack now coming from the body, survival is manageable as long as Kimahri stays above 700 HP, so we make sure to heal up whenever we get into that range, and then start taking care of the arms and the body. Seed Cannon is classified as special attack and therefore cannot be blocked by the arms, so we use that whenever Kimahri's overdrive bar is full, and otherwise just take care of the arms with physical attacks before focusing on the body. With the boss having 12,000 HP and Kimahri needing to often heal to stay alive, this battle takes a while, but after roughly 10 minutes, we throw out one last Seed Cannon to overkill the boss, clear Operation Mi'ihen, and move on. With Operation Mian concluded and Sin retreating once again, we push on to Jose High Road and towards the Temple of Jose. The first thing we want to do here is try to get an encounter with basilisks in order to learn Stone Breath from them via Lancet. Stone Breath is a 100% guaranteed AoE petrify attack, making it incredibly powerful since it one-shots every enemy who's not immune to the status, so for more dangerous encounters especially, this is going to be a huge help. With the basilisks only using Stone Gaze when there are 2 or more active characters in combat, we also don't need to worry about getting petrified ourselves. The other enemies aren't really worth mentioning as they follow the same element first priority system as previous areas. In the Cloister of Trials, we make sure to grab the Destruction Sphere chest, which contains a magic sphere, before continuing on to the Moonflow. The area has very similar enemy encounters to Jose High Road. The only encounters worth mentioning is the Ocho, which can poison with its regular attack and inflict darkness, silence, confuse, and slow with Ocho Dance when its HP drops low. Fortunately, it is not immune to petrify, so Stone Breath one-shots it if Kimahri's overdrive bar is full. Once we reach the Moonflow, we buy a Snakehead from Waka for Poison Touch. While this is not necessary immediately, Poison will become valuable later on against high HP enemies where the passive damage speeds up the battles quite a bit. We also buy a Bright Armlet for Dark Ward to have some blind resistance as a situational backup and then head towards Guado Salam. On the way we have the Extractor boss fight, which we won't cover in detail because Kimahri is not involved, and once Rico joins the party and we reach Guado Salam, we get access to customizing. While most of the relevant customizing options aren't accessible yet, this feature will become one of the most important tools in the run as the challenge progresses. After the Seymour interaction and the Farplane sequence, we head towards the Thunder Plains next. The red armlet with the triple elemental ward is once again pulling its weight here as lots of enemies are attacking the party with Thundara. We equip the Tidal Spear on Kimahri as most enemies are weak to water, so we can still one-shot most of them if we're able to connect with our attack. The Air Roach in particular are problematic because we're getting to the point where Kimahri has major problems hitting flying enemies. Luckily their attacks get reduced thanks to our armlet, but they're still a pain to deal with. Even more concerning than that though are the Buer, who can inflict confuse to the party, and with them oftentimes appearing in combination with the Air Roach, this can quickly become a problem if Stone Breath isn't available. For enemy prioritization, we still follow the same system as in previous areas. Focus on everything that inflicts ailments, and then take out the rest. If Kimahri's overdrive bar is full, Stone Breath usually takes out the entire enemy group in a single hit as well. On the way, we also pray to the Cactus statues. This is going to unlock Kimahri's Celestial weapon once we prayed a total of 3 times. We don't have the Celestial Mirror yet to actually open the chest containing the weapon, but it makes sense to get this out of the way while we are already passing through here. Quacktaws also start appearing in random encounters after praying to the stones, and with the sky-high evasion of 17, hitting them with regular physical attacks is very unlikely. As a comparison, most enemies have an evasion stat of 0 or 1. Even flyers like the Buer we fought before only has 12 evasion. Luckily, they are not immune to petrify, so if we have a full overdrive bar, we just cast Stone Breath and easily take them out in a single hit. Before we head to the Macalania Woods, there is one more thing we need to do, and it's one of the most universally disliked activities: dodging lightning. While we do not need to dodge the maximum of 200 lightning bolts, we still want to aim for 100 dodges, considering our rewards for that include 3 strength and 4 HP spheres, all of which we're going to need to bump up Kimahri's stats. There is a spot in the Thunder Plain where lightning strikes very regularly, so by using that, we are done not even 10 minutes later. And yes, I activated no encounters for that because there is nothing worse than being sniped by lightning right after getting into a random encounter. With the lightning dodges behind us, we collect our rewards and then head to the Macalania Woods next. The wasps in here have a 40% chance to poison a party member, and with them being flyers, they are rather hard to hit. Theoretically, we could switch armors into Poison Ward to nullify their poison procs, but with several other enemies still using elemental magic, our triple ward armor overall is probably still the better option. This proves to be the right call when we run into a Chimera which uses fire, lightning, and water magic. Random encounters are becoming noticeably more dangerous now that we're almost midway through the game. From status elements like Poison and Petrify that have followed us throughout the run, to high damage outputs from enemies like the blue element's Waterer, we have to build a wide selection of equipment to cover all kinds of situations, and the need to switch gear mid-battle to adapt is only going to become more important as the challenge progresses. We stop by Waka, tell him his prices are too high so reduces them by 25%, and then buy the blue armlet for water wards, since this is the only element we hadn't covered with a ward armor until now. With the gap filled, we head into the next boss fight against Spheromorph. Spheromorph has 100 physical defense but will always be weak to one element. In order to find which one it is, you have to attack it first and observe which element it counters with, since it will always be weak to the opposing element of the counterattack. In this case, we get water, which means it is weak to lightning. Because of this, we switch into the Thunder Spear and attack the boss with it, dealing about 1600 damage per weakness hit. After a weakness hit, Spheromorph will use Elemental Shift, switching its weakness, so we need to hit it again to find out its new weakness. And that is basically the entire battle. Spheromorph itself will only use weak single target physical attacks that only deal a bit more than 200 damage, and once its HP have been halved, it uses Press, which is a gravity attack that does 50% of your current HP as damage. Both of those can easily be healed up with high potions when Kimahri gets low on HP, so we continue hitting the boss with the correct weakness until the boss goes down. Nothing special to note about this fight, but we are not far off from the first real roadblock of the challenge. Before we continue on with the game's story though, we are heading into our next item grind, this time against Xyphos, who appears in 2 out of 6 enemy formations. Xyphos can drop weapons with SOS Overdrive, which doubles the speed at which your overdrive charges when Kimahri drops into critical HP. We are going to need that for the upcoming Seymour battle, specifically for the Anima portion of the fight, and this is our only chance to get one at this point of the game. Unfortunately, the drop chances are not particularly favorable. The enemy has a 50% chance to drop equipment, a 50% chance for the equipment to be a weapon, a roughly 40% chance for the weapon to be a spear, and then a 25% chance for the weapon to have 3 slots, so we have room to add additional strength via customizing, and then another 1 in 7 for the SOS Overdrive ability. If I did my math correctly, this comes out at roughly 0.36%, meaning we can expect 1 drop every 275 encounters. Even with 4 times speed and frequent encounter options toggled on, this took about 2 hours, but luckily the first drop we got was a lens with 3 total slots, so with an extra strength plus 3% customized onto it, we can head towards Makalania Temple. We equip the Thunder Spear, as well as the SOS Region Armlet, and get ambushed by the Elbat before facing the Crawler. With the Negator up, we can't cast magic, which is irrelevant in our scenario. In fact, keeping it alive makes the battle much safer since Crawler's strongest attack Mana Beam only happens if you take the Negator down first. As long as it's up, Crawler will only use Gatling Gun, which hits random party members for a total of 8 times. This is also the reason why we put on the SOS Region Armor, since the enemy's attacks will always put us into critical health, dealing between 700 and 900 damage, so the accessory makes healing up more manageable. We regularly have to heal up with high potions to keep Kimahri alive, and only get 1 attack in every 3 or 4 times the Crawler attacks. But our strategy overall is safe, and it's only a matter of time until we take the Crawler down. This was the easy part though, because once again, we're looking out for a specific item drop. This time around, we want to get a spear with alchemy on it, an ability that doubles your healing potency. Compared to our previous grind, this one is much more generous though. Crawler will always drop a piece of equipment, so we just need to hit the 50% of it being a weapon, the roughly 40% of it being for Kimahri, and then a 3 out of 7 for the ability, and since the ability can roll in 3 potential slots, we have a total chance of 5.8%, which isn't a lot either, but still much better compared to before. And this time we got really lucky, because on our only second attempt, we already got the drop we were looking for, so we continue on to Makalania Temple. Here is also a small detail not everybody may know. Depending on which character has the highest affection value, you get different cutscenes during the ride to the temple. The cutscenes involving the girls are usually the ones that most people know about since their affection goes up faster than the guys, with them usually gaining +4 when interacted with on the field, compared to the +2 from guys. This is one nice thing about solo challenges. You get to see those small little cutscenes that lots of players have likely never seen before, but enough of the random cutscene trivia, it's time we enter Makalania Temple. We get Kimahri into critical HP, equip our SOS Overdrive Spear, as well as the Null Frost Armlet, change our Overdrive mode to Avenger, which fills up the Overdrive when a party member gets KO'd, and then confront Seymour about his role in Lord Chisco's death, and with that we head into the hardest fight in this challenge so far, and probably one of the hardest ones in the entire challenge, as we battle Seymour 1. The first phase is still straightforward. With a full overdrive bar, we can immediately throw out a seed cannon at Seymour, which does enough damage to immediately end phase 1 and transition into the Anima phase, and here is where the lottery begins. Anima will switch between using Pain, which one-shots a party member, and Boost, where it will charge its overdrive, while also taking 50% more damage during this. We have 3 turns to deal a total of 18,000 damage, so this means that not only do we need to get good luck and have Anima target the other 2 party members first before going for Kimahri, we also need to get good luck with critical hits. Thanks to the SOS Overdrive Spear, we gain just enough overdrive from the 2 pains on the other party members that we can fire off a seed cannon if Anima targets the other 2 party members first, but even with the extra overdrive attack, we're dealing nowhere near enough damage, as we usually deal around 14,000 with the few turns we got, so we have to get a critical at least once if we want to get through here. And even that might not be enough, as we need to hit higher rolls on Kimahri's attacks, since low damage rolls are not going to get the job done in time either. Lady Luck is once again not on our side, as we game over time after time, either because Kimahri gets targeted early by Anima, or because we just don't get any luck with critical hits. Unfortunately, there isn't anything we can do to increase our chances. We have already activated all nodes on Kimahri's grid, so there is no way to get his attack up any further. We just have to hope that we get some crazy amount of luck to get through here. It is worth noting that while Death has a supposedly 100% hit rate, that is not entirely true, so I want to walk you through the game's calculations quickly. The game looks up 2 values when calculating a status chance. The first one is the actual landing chance of the status, which is subtracted by the target's status resistance. For example, if the enemy has a 100% hit rate but your party has a 50% resistance, the resulting value is 50. The second value is a randomized value between 0 and 100 inclusive, so let's say 34 for our example. If the status value is higher than the randomized value, the status will connect. In our case, Anima has a 100% chance to hit death, minus 0% resistance from the party since there is no way to gain any death resistance at this point of the game yet. But if we manage to roll a 100 on the randomized value, both are equal, and since the status only applies when the status value is higher than the random value, a roll of exactly 100 results in a miss, so there is a 1 in 101 chance that pain doesn't inflict death on a character. While this is not something we should rely on, this gives Kimahri an additional turn to act, but even with that, we need to get at least 1 critical hit since otherwise we would still fall short of the 18,000 damage threshold. Either way, while I was explaining the game's mechanics, we watched our party fall several more times, and unfortunately, that was not going to change anytime soon. Kimahri managed to get a critical hit several times, but usually it was during the first attack where the critical hit matters the least. Ideally, we want to crit on Seed Cannon or at least on the boost turns since critical hits have the most impact during high damage windows. None of that matters however when Anima decides to use Pain on Kimahri early, giving us no opportunity to get any meaningful damage in. I also enabled the cutscene remover for this segment because each failed attempt would otherwise require sitting through the entire Seymour cutscene again, which is quite lengthy, particularly when you're watching it hundreds of times. At some point I just started putting the battle on ×4 speed, and put on something on the side to watch in between because it was always going to be the same pattern anyways, and mindless grinding without anything else to pay attention to would drive me insane sooner than later. And this was how I spent the next couple of hours trying to get through this boss battle. Every time we got an early critical hit, I immediately turned the speed down to regular, hoping that we have a chance to beat Anima now, but either Kimahri got targeted early by Pain, or we were off on damage because we only got a single critical hit on the boss. On 2 attempts, I was so sure that we got it that I actually went back and counted damage on the recording, but one time we were 121 damage off, and the other one we were only missing 69 damage to get it. Eventually though, we had an attempt where we crit on both regular physical attacks, and at this point my heart rate went up. If Anima doesn't target Kimahri now, this could be it, and there you go, I think we got this. We fire off our seed cannon, and when the word overkill appeared, I actually jumped out of my chair, but at the same moment, I had to calm myself down because while the hardest part was now behind us, the battle still wasn't over. We now have to go through Seymour one more time, who will cycle between using 2 tier 2 elemental spells per turn now. This is the reason why we went into the battle wearing an SOS Null Ice Armlet, since Seymour will always start with Blissara and then go through the other elements in a fixed cycle. Knowing this, we can just switch SOS Null Armors around to make sure Kimahri never gets damaged by Seymour's attacks. Kimahri's agility is quite low, so we don't always get the chance to attack between the boss's attacks, but as long as we switch around armlets, we are invincible in this phase. 3 attacks by Kimahri are enough to put Seymour down for good, and we're able to finish off the worst boss fight so far, and one of the hardest battles this challenge has to offer. This was intense. While the battle itself is rather simple due to how it works, having to grind for hours until we finally got good enough luck was brutal, but in the end, we managed to pull through. We grab the Luck Sphere from the Cloister of Trials, the party escapes the temple, but before we even have a chance to celebrate our victory over Seymour, Wendigo is blocking the path and we have another boss fight on our hands. Wendigo is accompanied by 2 Guados, and because our party has low agility, the enemies get to act first, and Wendigo immediately one-shots Kimahri before we even get our first turn, so this battle was over fast. On attempt number 2, we get slightly better luck, and with Stone Breath we can easily take out the Guado in a single hit. The Petrify also prevents them from casting Protect and Shell on Wendigo, so we can deal full damage to the boss, who's now the only one left standing. Luckily there is a chance that party members dodge Wendigo's attacks, which is crucial, because getting hit means getting one shot. To improve our chances, we have a Dark Touch Spear equipped. With Wendigo having a 20% blind resistance, this means that we have a 30% chance to blind it, rendering all of its attacks ineffective for the next 3 turns due to all of them missing. And while this is not as big of a lottery compared to Anima, there is still a 70% chance of the status failing to land each time, so Wendigo will inevitably get hits in and wipe Kimahri again. The safer way to battle the boss would be to put it to sleep with a Sleep Touch weapon and then just nuke it with Seed Cannon, but unfortunately we never got one, so blind is the best option to go with. It takes a couple of attempts, but after a few tries we get the necessary luck needed with blind staking several times, or Kimahri dodges the boss's regular attacks, and we're able to take Wendigo down. Unfortunately, this was the easy part because once again, we are looking for a very specific item drop. Wendigo has a chance to drop armor with SOS Haste, which is a must for the F-Rate battle later on, and since there is no option to get it anywhere else, this is our only opportunity, so if the item doesn't drop, we reload and go through the entire boss battle again. Wendigo has a 50% chance of dropping equipment, another 50% for it to be an armor, again roughly 40% for it to belong to Kimahri, and a 1 in 7 chance to roll SOS Haste. Combined, this gives us roughly 2% chance per attempt, so we have a 1 in 50 chance of getting the desired drop. While 2% may not sound like a lot, it is still more favorable than previous item grinds, and we even get lucky here as we get the desired haste armlet on only our 8th attempt, so well under the expected odds. But fear not, another grind is not far off, as we end up beneath Makalania Temple where Sin once again attacks the party and carries them to Beaconell Island. Once we have our entire party with the exception of Yuna back together, we can head into what will keep us occupied for the next several hours. We are looking for two specific items in Bikanel. The first one being an armor for Kimahri with auto potion on it, which is dropped by the sandworm who can be found somewhat consistently in the western part of the desert. Sandworm has 45,000 HP in total, so it takes a while to take it down. Here is where the Poison Touch Spear we bought from Oak on the Moonflow comes in handy. Sandworm has no poison resistance, so we have a 50% chance to poison it, which will damage the enemy for 4,500 HP every turn, cutting down the time to beat it significantly. But that again was the easy part. Let's talk about drop chances now. We not only want an armor with auto potion, we also ideally wanted to have 4 slots in total, since this will be the base for our final armor later on. Sandworm has a 50% chance to drop equipment, another 50% for it to be an armor, roughly 40% for it to belong to Kimahri, 10% for it to have 4 slots, 75% for it to only have 1 ability because it can also roll 10% max HP, which we want to avoid, and then a 1 in 7 that this one ability is auto potion. This puts us at an incredible 0.105 chance of getting the armor we want, so roughly a 1 in 952 chance per sandworm kill, making this one of the rarest drops in the run so far due to the strict 4 slot plus single ability requirement. As you can imagine, we're going to spend the next couple of hours here, and I'm not looking forward to this at all. You may be wondering why I always show the drop chance breakdowns, and the reason is rather straightforward. In a video like this, you only see the highlights of a challenge, and I don't think it always comes across how insane some of those grinds actually are. Up until now, we probably spent more than 60% of the challenge's total time trying to obtain specific items, so I just want to give you a clearer sense of how time consuming these segments actually are. This is also the reason why I didn't add further restrictions like no escape or no encounters to the challenge, as grinds like this already take what feels like forever, and those restrictions would further increase the amount of hours needed to get equipment we need going forward. That being said, anybody want to take a guess how long it took us to find the item we need? If you would have said 3 hours, I'd say go higher. If you would have said 5 hours, I'd say go even higher. If you would have said 10 hours, well, you're pretty close now, because after about 9.5 hours, we finally got the drop that we were looking for. During this, we have gotten several auto potion armors for different characters, including some for Kimahri, but unfortunately never one with 4 slots. But wait, there is more, because this was only the first of 2 grinds we need to do in Bikanel, so we are melting in the scorching hot desert for even longer. Before going for grind number 2 though, we quickly go through the Sandragora fights, which can be tricky since they like to inflict confuse on the party. With them not being immune to Petrify though, we can just use Stone Breath to immediately one-shot them and collect the rewards. With those out of the way, we head into the second part of the grind as we're battling the encounter formation of 2 mech guards and a mech gunner, which is the enemy we're looking for. Those can drop all kinds of SOS related armor, and the one we're looking for here is one with SOS Reflect. Now looking at the chances, its drop chance is only 23%, and with the 50% of it being armor, the roughly 40% of it being for Kimahri, and the 1 in 7 for it to have the ability we're looking for, we arrive at a 0.7% chance, so roughly a 1 in 143 per mech gunner kill. While that is quite a bit higher compared to the sandworm grinds, the chances are still not the best. The enemy can also drop armor with SOS Protect on it, which we need at a later point too, but considering we have other chances to get it until then, it's not a necessity to grab it now. While that is quite a bit higher compared to the sandworm grind, the chances still are not the best. The enemy can also drop armor with SOS Protect on it, which we will need at a later point too, but considering that we have other chances to get it until then, it's not a necessity to grab it now. Either way, anyone want to take another guess how long this grind took? Okay, we're not playing the same game again, and honestly we don't even have a reason to, because amazingly enough, we got the SOS Reflect armor only about 10 minutes into the grinds. I gotta say, this perfectly shows off the duality of randomness. Both items don't have high drop chances, one taking almost 10 hours, the other one arriving within 10 minutes. But such is the nature of RNG, you just gotta love it. With the grinding behind us for now, we continue towards home, which is under attack from the Guado. We have a couple of mandatory fights in here, but none of them are worth covering in detail. All enemies are vulnerable to petrify, so we can one-shot each of them by casting Stone Breath. A brief segment, I know, but there genuinely is not much to cover here, and after grinding in the desert for 10 hours, I just wanted to get the hell out of here as quickly as possible. Before leaving, we make sure to grab the level 4 key sphere, which we'll need to access Ultima later, and then board the airship as the party sets out to find Yuna, only to find her in Bevel, where she's being forced to marry Seymour. Before we can interrupt the ceremony though, we have to go through the Guardian Worm in F-Ray first. We sell all our regular potions at Rin's shop, customize Stone Ward on our SOS Haste armor for some resistance against F-Ray's Petrify attack, and then equip the Alchemy Spear we got from Wendigo, as well as another potion armlet before heading into the fight. F-Ray has a fixed attacking pattern where it will always do a single target attack twice in a row, then charge up before unleashing its big Poison Breath attack. Here is where Auto Potion comes into play. The physical attacks are strong enough to put us into critical HP, which immediately triggers the auto heal. Thanks to the Alchemy Spear, healing item potency is doubled, which means Kimahri heals himself to full every time it triggers. This is also the reason why we sold our regular potions just before, as Auto Potion will always go for the lowest form of healing, which is now a High Potion. On the offensive side, we will only use Seed Cannon and otherwise switch equipment to quickly fill Kimahri's overdrive. Once F-Ray has taken 3 hits, it will use Stone Gaze, which has a 100% chance to petrify the character targeted with it, and since we only got a Stone Ward, this means that there is still a 50-50 chance to instantly get wiped, so we want to reduce the chances of that happening as much as possible. Poison Breath deals around 1500 damage, but with Auto Potion to heal up and a follow-up antidote to clear the status, this is manageable. Before hitting the 3rd Seed Cannon, we switch accessories to the SOS Haste and Stoneward armor and then hope for favorable odds. Not only can Stone Gaze still petrify Kimahri with a 50% chance, but it also delays the party member's next turn in case they survive. This is why we grinded the SOS Haste armlet earlier, to make sure that we get our next turn somewhat soon despite getting delayed. Since Stone Gaze will override the next attack, we time it to replace the second regular attack, so F-Ray's next turn is charging up the Poison Breath, which gives us a little leeway to recover from the delay. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Queen Flip on our first attempt, Stone Gaze hit, and that's all she wrote. On attempt number 2, we managed to dodge the status and can continue on doing damage with Seed Cannon. Once the boss's HP drop below 10,667, it will also cast haste on itself, and now we're in deep trouble since the enemy usually gets 2 to 3 turns in before Kimahri gets another chance to act. Theoretically, we could switch back to the SOS Haste armlet to get more turns in, but I really don't want to sacrifice the Auto Potion passive, so we just take a couple of hits while healing up, and throw more Seed Cannons at the boss when Kimahri's overdrive is full. And while we get a ton of incoming attacks between our turns, Auto Potion takes care of this, and eventually we fire off the last Seed Cannon to take F-Ray down. With the Guardian Worm down, the party lands in Bevel, where we now have to fight through a couple of guards first. With the increased base damage Fire Spear equipped, we can one-shot all regular guards, and if we ever get low on HP, Kimahri will just use Auto Potion so we can focus on getting the enemies down. The YKT-63 can use Thrust Kick to permanently remove party members from battle, so we usually prioritize it first. With Kimahri's strength and the fire weakness, we can easily one-shot them as well, though this turned out to be unnecessary because looking up the enemy's AI script, it will never use Thrust Kick when there is only a single party member left in the battle. With the guards dealt with, Yuna goes skydiving, and we make our way through Bevel's Cloister of Trials. We go through the cloister twice, because on the first attempt I forgot to take the last Bevel Sphere with us, costing us Kimahri's weapon chest, so we make sure to not repeat the same mistake again, and then grab the HP Sphere as well as the Knight's Lance. After Yuna obtained the newest Aeon, the party gets captured, imprisoned, and separated. Considering the next couple of segments don't really involve Kimahri, we will only cover those briefly. The Aeon battle against Isaru is easy since we've done so many random encounters that Yuna's Aeons make short work of Isaru, and the refight against every Altana is dispatched quickly with 2 Phoenix Downs. The party reunites on the bridge where Seymour again confronts the party, and we're about to get into the next battle against him. Before we do that though, we stop by Owaka to buy a couple of regular potions and then get ready for the next battle. And this is where the SOS Reflect armlet we grinded in Bikanel comes into play. All of Seymour's attacks are magic based, so after Seymour puts Kimahri into critical HP with his first attack, the Reflect kicks in, which means we're now invincible against almost all incoming attacks, so we can watch as Seymour is slowly beating himself. Despite that, we switch to the healing lance for alchemy and throw a potion to Kimahri to keep Kimahri's HP up, since Morty Body will use Shattering Claw in phase 2, which is a physical attack that deals around 300 damage. This is why we bought regular potions at Owaka, since high potions would put Kimahri's HP over 50% and therefore get rid of the Reflect from our SOS armlet. The main reason why we need that armlet though is Seymour's phase 2 that he enters when he drops below 24,000 HP. During this, he exclusively uses Break, which is a guaranteed petrify, and considering we don't have Stoneproof for Kimahri, this would be an instant game over otherwise. Without any reflected damage, we also need to damage Seymour ourselves to get through this phase, so we usually just charge up Kimahri's overdrive with the SOS Overdrive Spear, and then throw out seed cannons at him while healing up from Shattering Claw in between. Once Seymour drops below 12,000 HP, he will enter his last phase where we get to relax again, because all he does from now on is Flare, which gets reflected back, while Morty Body just heals Seymour with Cura. With the reflected damage easily outweighing the heal, it's only a matter of time until Seymour is down yet again. Compared to the first Seymour battle, this was a cakewalk, but from here on out, things are not going to get any easier as the party flees to the Macalania woods. Kimahri watches over Yuna to make sure nothing funny is going on, and once the new dawn breaks, the party continues their journey as we head to the Calmlands next, and there are a couple of optional things we want to do now. First of all, we stop by the monster arena to begin the monster capturing side quest. We will need to customize several important abilities on our equipment as we get into the late game, so starting early makes sense given how many items we will need. We are also going to train a Chocobo in order to reach Remium Temple, where we acquired a Cloudy Mirror by racing the Chocobo to start preparing for Kimahri's Celestial Weapon. In the Macalania Woods, we can upgrade the Cloudy Mirror into the Celestial Mirror, and then head back to the Thunder Plains for the Spirit Lands. Thanks to Auto Potion, we are pretty safe from getting wiped, even if it takes us a couple of turns to hit enemies like the Flyers or Quackdoors. All other enemies are no big issue, so we grab the Spirit Lands and then head back. Since we need to pass through the Macalania Woods again, we might as well do the Butterfly minigame since one of its rewards is a Saturn Sigil, which is needed to power up Kimahri's Celestial Weapon. What I didn't remember though was that the sigil only unlocks after you get the airship, so after being confused for a while when opening the chest and looking up what went wrong, we head back towards the Calmlands. Since we already started our capturing process in the Thunder Plains, we continue on in the Calmlands since we need to capture at least one of each enemy here to unlock the monster arena. Once again, with Auto Potion equipped, most encounters remain manageable even though the incoming damage becomes noticeably higher the further we get towards the end. There are still several enemy formations that we need to watch out for. Curls can potentially petrify Kimahri, so we need to get some luck here that they won't use them until they're captured. Anaconders can also petrify the party, but they will never use that spell if there is only one party member left on the field, so we're safe here. Against the Marlborough, we can also use Lancet to learn Bad Breath, which at the same time is also the enemy's most dangerous attack in the battle. We can't defend against the majority of statuses properly, so we have to hope that ailments like Confuse or Berserk won't hit, since neither have a guaranteed infliction rate. Chimera Brain is another enemy that is problematic, mainly because they always come in groups of 2, and while we can tank most of its attacks just fine, the Auto Potion usually doesn't heal for enough to tank all of their following attacks, but if we manage to take one down with our regular weapons, we can outlast the second one long enough to capture it. After heading back to the monster arena, we also get 99 Chocobo Wings as a reward for capturing everything in the Thunder Plains, and since that's all we need at this stage, we continue on with the story. To prepare for the next boss fight, we customize Evade and Counter onto a spear with the teleport spheres we picked up in Beaconell earlier, equip an armlet to increase our max HP by 10%, and then head into the next boss fight against Defender X. We could have customized this weapon all the way back in Beaconell, but evading counter makes a lot of boss fights trivial due to dodging every physical attack that can be evaded, so I wanted to wait until the right time, which I am pretty sure is now. Defender X will exclusively attack with physical attacks, where it will cycle through 3 regular attacks before using Haymaker. Unfortunately, I forgot that Haymaker cannot be dodged, so in the first attempt, we get wiped pretty much immediately. Knowing this, we can act accordingly in our second attempt. Before going for the attack on the boss, we will cast a total of 5 chinks to decrease the enemy's luck and increase our chances of getting a critical hit. On the turn that Haymaker is due, we defend with Kimahri, which reduces the attack's damage just enough to stay alive thanks to the extra 10% HP we got from the armlet, so we can heal up with high potions again and then continue. Theoretically, the enemy can also cast Sloga if it gets hit a total of 5 times before its next turn, but luckily, Kimahri is nowhere near fast enough for that, so we don't have to worry about this. And that is the entire enemy pattern for this boss fight. Guard on every 4th turn to tank Haymaker, heal up, and continue attacking until Defender X is down. Before we head towards Mount Gagaset, we make a stop at the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, and this is where you can see the true strength of evading counter. Every enemy that uses physical attacks and can be dodged gets dodged and countered automatically, making most random encounters much safer than before. While we are here, we also get going with the first couple of captures here. We don't need to capture everything immediately, but might as well take the chances as we go through the cave. We're not even here for Yojimbo, but rather for the Fortune Sphere, since this is the second to last time we can increase Kimahri's luck. With that being said, we leave the cave and head up Mount Gagaset next, while we run into Biran and Yankee for the only mandatory Kimahri only battle in the game. The enemy's stats are directly tied to Kimahri's, but the battle is usually not a big problem. The biggest thing here is that we can learn a lot of Ronso Rages, either ones we missed earlier or even new ones that appear here for the first time. This is also where I noticed how many Ronso Rages we actually missed, considering that we didn't really need them. The less useful ones include things like Aqua Breath and Thrust Kick, but we can also learn situationally useful rages like Doom, and most importantly, Mighty Guard. You can only learn Mighty Guard once Biran has used it prior, which happens when he drops below 25% of his health. Mighty Guard applies Protect and Shell, as well as Null All, and while the nulls are a nice bonus, Protect and Shell are the most important ones since they have both physical and magical incoming damage. We can also learn Wind Wind from Yankee, who uses it when he drops below 25% of his HP, though this is the less important Ronso Rage, as we can also learn it from Dark Flan and Sanarkand later. And in our case, we don't even get a chance to, as we hit a critical on Yankee and snipe him before he even gets into set HP range. With Biran and Yankee down, we can start climbing up the mountain where the difficulty in enemy encounters once again increases. We're getting to the point where evade and counter is increasingly necessary for survival, and even that isn't guaranteed, as enemies like Needhawk can one-shot Kimahri from full HP with the Fire Breath. This is why we try to take out magic casting enemies first, as we don't need to worry about any enemies with physical attacks. We also run into Wands here, but unfortunately the equipment he has for Kimahri is underwhelming, so we don't buy anything from him. Talking to him is still important though, as it's a requirement so he shows up in Makalania later, where he will sell equipment with 4 slots, giving us a great source of blank equipment for late game customizing. We also pick up all the chests on the way, which include an HP sphere, as well as another level 4 key sphere, which brings us one step closer to Ultima. Not like we need it, but it's the last bit of sphere grid that is still left to unlock. Once we reach the top of the mountain, we again run into Seymour, and as expected, we have to battle him yet again. Unlike the second Seymour battle, we can't trivialize it with Reflect this time, though there is another cheesing strategy that we can do. The idea here is that we poison Seymour using Bad Breath that we learned from Marlborough earlier, and allow the poison damage to carry the fight. If we never directly damage Seymour, he will not transition to later phases, which means the entire battle becomes much safer. In phase 1, he will only use Lance of Atrophy followed by Full Life to instantly KO party members. After doing that twice, he will dispel the party and then use Cross Cleave to deal physical party-wide damage. The initial idea was to go into the battle with SOS Haste so that we're able to cure the zombie status in time and avoid getting insta-killed with Full Life. Unfortunately though, Lance of Atrophy doesn't do enough damage to put Kimahri into critical health, and with his low agility, we're not getting another turn before Seymour follows up with Full Life. If we can reduce the chance of getting zombied, the battle might become more manageable, so we customize Zombie Ward on an armlet and then head back into the battle. Unfortunately, Zombie Ward only gives you 50% resistance, and since Lance of Atrophy has a 100% infliction rate, it's still a 50-50 whether Kimahri gets zombied or not. After several attempts with this setup, I quickly realized that this is probably not the way to go for. We had attempts where we dodged the status multiple times, but considering we only have a 10% chance to apply poison since Seymour has 90% resistance to it, we need something that is a little more reliable. I was checking whether we have enough remedies to maybe customize Automat onto an armor, which functions similar to Auto Potion as it instantly heals status ailments, but unfortunately we're quite off from the 20 that we need. Since the only way to obtain those from other sources than chests are either stealing or bribing, this is not going to be the solution to the problem either. The next idea I had was trying to customize Zombie Proof to have full protection from the status. For this, we need 10 Candles of Life that we can get by capturing all monsters on Mushroom Rock Road, so this appears to be the most viable option. Unfortunately, this is not possible either, since we can't backtrack all the way there considering the entry to Guadalsalam from the Thunder Plains is blocked until we get access to the airship. So what do we do now? We are slowly running out of options. While we think of alternatives, we head back to the Macalania Woods to capture all monsters there in the meantime. With Auto Potion equipped, no enemies pose a real threat to the party, so we capture everything without difficulty. Doing so will reward us with 60 Shining Gems that we can use to customize magic counter onto a weapon. A good base for that is the spear we can buy from the Ronsos, which, by the way, is a shop I didn't even know existed for the longest time. The Shapeshifter comes with plus 10% strength and 2 open slots. Alongside magic counter, we also add double overdrive onto it, using the underdog secrets that you get from Rin on the airship as a reward for collecting all bad primers. We also start building our endgame armlet as we take the 4-slot auto potion armlet we grinded Beacon L for so long, and then add auto haste from the Chocobo wings we got as a reward for capturing all monsters in the Thunder Plains. You may wonder where I'm going with all of this, but bear with me, it's all going to make sense in the end. With our new equipment, we head back into the monster arena and attempt the first creation, Chimera Geist. Chimera Geist has a fixed pattern cycling through Megiddo Flame, followed by either Blissara or Thundara, a regular undodgeable physical attack, and then Aqua Breath. Knowing this, we can set up Mighty Guard during the beginning of the battle to effectively block 3 out of 4 attacks thanks to the Null All. The only problem here is that the physical attack is a range and very likely to one-shot Kimahri, even while defending with a Protect up. Because of this, we also buy a Glorious Armlet from the Ronsos since we want another armor with 2 open slots. We head back into the Cavern of the Stolen Faith and specifically look out for magic urns. And before I explain why, we quickly go through the Yojimbo encounter, and quick is an understatement because Yojimbo can be inflicted with Doom, so after 5 turns have passed, death kicks in and the boss goes down immediately. Now returning to the magic urn. When attacking the middle eye, there is a 60% chance that we get a reward, and the one we are looking for is the stamina tablet, which drops 20% of the time. With 4 stamina tablets, we can customize another auto potion onto our armlet, as well as a defense plus 10% to reduce the physical damage from Chimera Geist. With this setup, we can now go back and battle the enemy one more time. Again, we start off with auto haste and auto potion and set up our Mighty Guard to block all magical attacks. Before Chimera Geist has his physical turn come up, we switch accessory to the one we just customized, make sure to defend, and are now able to easily tank the damage without going down. The auto potion gives us partial recovery, and we can switch back to the auto haste armor to set up Mighty Guard again. While we won't get a lot of opportunities for attacking the enemy, thanks to the magic counter, we will counter every magic attack except Aqua Breath, since this one is classified as special attack. And while this battle takes a while due to the enemy having 160,000 HP, we have a consistent strategy to take it down now. There are two reasons why I'm showing you this battle here. First of all, we want to get an Elemental Eater armor drop for Kimahri here. We don't need that immediately, but this is something to keep in mind for later. The other reason is that all monster creations have Dark Matters as a rare item drop. Dark Matters can be customized into Ribbon on an armor if you have 99 of those. Ribbon blocks all blockable status elements, including zombies, so with this, Seymour should not pose such a threat any longer. Another way of acquiring Dark Matters is via Blitzball. They occasionally come up as a reward for winning the league, but playing 10 Blitzball matches for a single Dark Matter seems like a pretty insane grind, even for me. It's not like the Chimera Geist option is much faster though, since the chance for a rare drop is only 12.5%, but I wanted to show you that we have options to attain them legitimately. And I'll be honest and upfront with all of you, I did not grind 99 of those. Doing so would have probably taken 200 hours or more of incredibly boring blitzballing, so for the sake of having a consistent upload schedule on YouTube, I just edited the 99 Dark Matters into my save file. I understand that some of you will take issue with this decision, but considering that the alternative is me not uploading another video for the next 3 months due to an effectively endless blitzball grind that wouldn't even make for interesting content, I think most would agree that this is a reasonable compromise. That being said, we now customize Ribbon onto our endgame armlet, and with that we return to Mount Gagaset to battle Seymour yet again. With Ribbon now making Kimahri immune to the zombie status, the only thing we need to watch out for is cross cleave, but since the timing is predictable, we can just defend to easily tank the hit. Auto Potion helps in recovery, so now the only thing we have to worry about is inflicting Seymour with poison. Bad Breath has 100% hit rate, but thanks to Seymour's resistance, we only have a 10% chance of actually connecting with it. Since the incoming attacks are not dangerous any longer though, this is not a real problem, but more a test of patience. And this time, we went slightly over odds as it took us 11 bad breaths until the poison stuck, but with that, the battle is practically won already. We just wait for poison to gradually drain Seymour's HP, and there is nothing he can do about it, so once he goes down, we get another level 4 key sphere as a reward, and are able to finally move on. That was a long segment, but the ribbon is going to become even more important in just a bit, so it was definitely the right call to get it now. Before continuing on in Gagaset Cave, we grab the hidden chest on the way for the Saturn Crest, which is another part of Kimahri's celestial weapon, and then move on. As mentioned earlier, we won't get access to the sigil until we have the airship, but at least we already got all other pieces together to fully upgrade the Spirit Lance. In fact, we return to the Macalania Woods immediately to perform the first upgrade. The Spirit Lance ignores the enemy's defense, so even without it being fully powered up, it consistently outdamages our other spears against most upcoming bosses, especially if they have high defense. We also head back into the Cavern of the Stolen Faith one more time to start our capturing progress there as well, because we need to do some more customizing for the upcoming boss fight against the Sanctuary Keeper. For the enemies in the cave, with Mighty Guard and Auto Potion, there isn't anything that is dangerous. With Mighty Guard active, we can't get one-shot any longer, and with Auto Potion immediately healing up the damage taken, we're pretty safe. The only thing we need to watch out for is waiting for the Tomberry to close in before attacking, since it will otherwise counter with an attack that is guaranteed to one-shot Kimahri. Once everything has been captured, we return to the monster arena for our reward, which are 40 silver hourglasses that we can use to customize Slow Touch on the weapon, and with that we can now head into Gagaset Cave. As in previous areas, Evade and Counter is once again our best friend, as it renders physical attacking encounters trivial. Mighty Guard makes sure we don't get one-shot by magic, and with that we're pretty much set. Against Dark Flan, we can use Lancet to learn White Wind that we accidentally skipped over in the Ronso battle earlier. Mount Gagaset doesn't offer any good rewards for capturing monsters, so we will skip that for now, but before we can tackle Sanctuary Keeper, we have another grinding session coming up. Remember how I talked about the SOS Protect armlet in B Canal and how we didn't need it immediately? Well, that point has arrived now. But luckily in the cave, you can find mech defenders who can drop those. And while this is usually where we show the drop chances of it, we don't have to do this time around because for some reason, it was already in my inventory. I was looking through all my video footage to see where the drop happened, but I could not find anything. Either it dropped in B Canal while I was offline grinding for the auto potion armlet without me noticing the entire time, which I do think is still rather unlikely, or it dropped right as we entered Gagaset Cave since I forgot to hit record until I was roughly 10 minutes into the session on that day. Either way, I am just glad that we can at least skip one grind because another one is coming up in just a bit when it comes to the Sanctuary Keeper. To be properly prepared, we customize evade and counter, as well as slow touch onto our weapon, and then add HP plus 20% to our protect armlets. With our equipment set, we head into the boss fight, which has probably the most insane strategy of the entire challenge. Some of you might have noticed that I haven't used any plus 300 HP nodes. In fact, I even left out a regular plus 200 HP node on Kimahri's grid, and this battle is exactly the reason why. We start off by using Scan, while Sanctuary Keeper will always start the battle by using Photon Wings, which inflicts multiple status ailments, so if we would not have gotten Ribbon on our armor up until that point, now we would need it. But this was the easy part. After Photon Wings, Auto Potion goes for the only regular potion that we have in our inventory to prevent Kimahri from healing to full, because we still need him in critical HP. We clear the curse with a Holy Water since it is an auto hit and prevents the overboard drive from being filled, and then we have to hope that the counter attack on the boss from its regular attack inflicts slow. Since we used Scan before, we can check if the status has connected or not, and if it didn't, the attempt already ends here. We need the counter attack to inflict slow since Sanctuary Keeper would otherwise immediately counter it with haste if done by a regular attack. The reason why we need slow is because we need to switch from our auto haste armlet into the SOS Protect armlet, where the extra plus 20% HP that we customized on it increases Kimahri's max HP to the point where the switch will now put us into critical HP and trigger the SOS Protect. Now we use Mighty Guard to set up Shell and throw a Mega Potion to survive the Mana Breath. After that, we clear the enemy's slow with a remedy to prevent it from casting haste, switch back into the auto armlet, switch into the Spirit Lance, and continue the fight. By doing this strategy, we can set up Shell while at the same time not setting up Protect. Without Shell, we couldn't survive Mana Breath, but with Protect, we wouldn't take enough damage from Sanctuary Keeper's regular attacks to trigger Auto Potion. This is also why we kept Kimahri's HP below 2000 for the entire challenge, since Sanctuary Keeper's attacks otherwise would not be guaranteed to trigger Auto Potion. And if you thought that was complicated already, you're in for a treat because it gets even better. Now that we have everything set up, we can start with the actual lottery of this boss fight, Poison. After using Mana Breath, Sanctuary Keeper will check for the next 2 turns if it's inflicted with either Armor Break, Blind or Poison. If neither of those apply, it will use Curaga, which heals for almost 10,000 HP. We need to prevent the Curaga at all costs since Kimahri is nowhere near strong enough to outdamage the heals. Since Armor Break is an ability of Oren, only Blind and Poison remain. Unfortunately, Blind is out of the question since Sanctuary Keeper has 100% blind resistance, and due to us not having any smoke bombs, we have no way to customize Dark Strike. Luckily though, and I put that luckily in quotation marks, Sanctuary Keeper only has a 90% poison resistance, which means that with Bad Breath, we have a 10% chance to apply poison. And here is the fun part. Since Sanctuary Keeper will check its ailments on 2 consecutive turns, we need to hit the 10% twice in a row to have a shot at winning this. But the fun doesn't even stop there just yet. Remember how I said that we need Shell to survive Mana Breath? Well, even with the Shell, a high roll on Mana Breath can still KO Kimahri from full HP if we get unlucky. While it is not that likely to happen, this is another luck-related factor that plays into a battle that is already a lottery to begin with. While we try to poison the boss, we also set up 5 chinks to reduce Sanctuary Keeper's luck, because we need to hit a couple of critical hits as well once we get going. We wait until the second Kiraga has been cast, and then go for Bad Breath to try and inflict poison. If it actually lands, we can start doing damage. Due to Sanctuary Keeper having 100 defense, the Spirit Lance is probably the best choice of weapon since it ignores the enemy's defense. With the Lance doing the most damage when Kimahri is at full HP, this is completed well with the Auto Potion. After Photon Wings, we throw a Holy Water to clear the curse and refill our Overdrive, and then start attacking the boss, hoping to get as many critical hits as possible in order to clear all of its HP in the short amount of time that we have available. Once the boss fires off Mana Breath, it will then clear the poison on the following turn with Asuna, which is when we go for the second Bad Breath, hoping to again hit the 10% to immediately poison the boss again. We need 2 cycles to deal enough damage to get it down, so if the second poison does not stick, the enemy will just heal itself back to full again, and we start back at square one. This entire battle is basically an endless cycle of luck-based events that can also end at any time if we get an unlucky roll on Mana Breath. This is definitely the hardest boss battle since the first encounter with Seymour, and I would argue that this may be even worse when it comes to the amount of luck we need to make it. Every time the first poison lands, I got my hopes up that this may be the run, only for the second poison to miss, putting us right back where we started. Considering the amount of luck we need to get through here, I was ready to be stuck on this boss for several hours, but in order to shorten the battle at least a little, I would usually put it on 4x speed until the poison lands, at which point I put it back to regular speed to not only have good quality game footage, but also to get myself excited for the second Bad Breath, only for it to miss again. And while we got stuck here for quite a while, it was nowhere near as bad as I initially expected, because about 2.5 hours into me attempting this boss, it happened. We connect with the first poison as we did many times before, so after throwing a Holy Water to clear the curse, we get going with the damage. We start with 5 regular non-critical attacks in a row, which is already a bad sign, because we need a couple of crits to actually get through its 40,000 HP pool. On the other hand, we lived through the Mana Breath with only 2 HP left, so I guess that kind of compensates it somewhat. But all of that doesn't matter unless we hit the second Bad Breath as well, and when I saw the status land, my blood pressure probably went through the roof. The boss has a little less than 20,000 HP remaining, so we need to hit several critical hits to have a shot at this. If we nail the 10% poison chance twice in a row, only to fail due to low damage rolls, I am going to throw something. And it looks like the RNG god smiled down at me, because on the second cycle, we managed to hit 2 consecutive critical hits. After throwing out a seed cannon, we managed to survive the following Mana Breath with 30 HP remaining, and with the last possible attack critting once again, we actually made it. And I can't even begin to tell you all how happy this made me. I was ready to be stuck here forever, so getting through here much quicker than expected was a huge relief. And it's only now that I'm watching this back that I noticed how much that last critical hit mattered. The boss had close to 2800 HP left, so unless we would have gotten a really high damage roll, a non-critical hit probably would not have been enough to get us through here. Whew, what a battle. Luckily we get to relax now, at least for a little while. I want to give huge shoutouts to Voidling20, who initially came up with this insane strategy years ago when many people thought this boss fight was literally impossible in a solo Kimahri setting. That being said, we can finally activate the final HP plus 200 node on Kimahri's grid, though we will leave the remaining empty nodes free, because we're going to need them for a specific stat that will make the challenge possible later on. The game revisits the opening cutscene, and we continue making our way to Sanakant. The enemies in the ruins are basically the same as in Gagaset Cave, so we don't need to go into detail on those. In the dome we have undead soldiers, as well as the Machina we fought in Bevel earlier, both of which Kimahri handles comfortably, with the combination of evading counter and mighty guard. Once we reach the temple, we go through the last cloister of trials where we have Spectral Keeper waiting for us. The core mechanic of this fight is the boss trying to berserk the party and then KO them with counterattacks, but with Ribbon on our armor, this is not an issue for us. I was also thinking that with evading counter, we could dodge the boss's counterattacks, but this turns out to not be possible, and we get one shot before we even have a chance to properly set up. Knowing this, we start the battle by casting Mighty Guard for Protect, and then start decreasing the boss's luck with Jinx. With Spectral Keeper also having 100 defense again, we switch back to the Spirit Lance for its defense ignoring property and start damaging the boss. Both Berserk Tail and its counterattack can easily be out-healed with Auto Potion, so the only thing we have to watch out for is the positioning of the Glyph Mines. If they appear on Kimahri's spot, we need to move, otherwise we can just ignore them and continue on attacking. And that is practically all to mention about this battle. After the mess that was Sanctuary Keeper, I am glad that we have such a straightforward boss to calm things down, and after a little while, Spectral Keeper goes down and the path to Yunalesca opens. The party learns the truth about the origin of the final Aeon, we refuse to sacrifice somebody, get one of the biggest badass speeches in the history of video gaming by Oren, and now have to go up against Yunalesca. Phase 1 of the battle is rather simple. Yunalesca will switch between a weak attack that dispels the target, and Absorb, which will always target the character with the highest HP and reduce them by 50% of their max HP. Yunalesca will counter all physical attacks with Blind, but with the Rhythm equipped, we don't need to worry about that. And that's basically all for Phase 1. We continue doing damage until she transitions into Phase 2. During this, the entire mechanic of this phase revolves around putting zombie on party members, and then damaging them with healing spells. Since Ribbon makes Kimahri immune to zombie though, all of this does not matter, and we frequently don't even have to heal since Yunalesca either casts Cura or Regen on Kimahri. When Yunalesca gets low on HP though, we have to switch armor in order to get zombied. She will start phase 3 by using Mega Death, which instantly KOs everybody not inflicted with zombie, so there is no way around that. We make sure to not have Regen applied, switch the armlet, and then deal the final blow for Yunalesca to transition into her final phase. Mega Death connects, but does nothing due to the zombie status, so we switch back into the Auto Potion armor, heal the status, and continue doing damage. Yunalesca will now do 2 attacks, which can be either Hellbiter, Curaga, or Regen, and then go for Mind Blast, which can confuse party members, but again Ribbon protects us from that. After Mind Blast, we need to switch armor yet again, because she will do one more attack before going for the next Mega Death. On the attacking turns, she goes for Hellbiter with a 90% chance, which is enough for us to hope for a new zombie status right before she goes for Mega Death. Unfortunately, I didn't pay enough attention to my HP before that, so after we attack, Yunalesca counters, puts Kimahri into critical HP, triggers the Auto Potion, and Kimahri KOs himself. Absolute cinema. Note to self, for future attempts, it's probably smarter to just defend until Mega Death happens and then heal the zombie status. On the next attempt, we make it right back into phase 3, but this time we don't even get to heal the zombie as Yunalesca goes for Curaga, which deals over 4000 damage and therefore easily one-shots Kimahri. Yunalesca has a 30% chance to not use Hellbiter when one party member is on the zombie status, so while this was unlucky, this is not something that I want to obsess over. Once we made it through the first cycle, we only need to hope that Yunalesca uses Hellbiter on the turns between Mind Blast and Mega Death, which as mentioned earlier, has a 90% chance of happening, so guess what happened on the following attempt. She goes for Mind Blast, we switch armors, and Yunalesca goes for Reach instead of Hellbiter, leaving no way to survive the follow-up Mega Death. Unfortunate, but nothing we could have done about that. To counteract that, we customize Zombie Touch on the spear, so if that happens again, Kimahri can try to inflict zombie on himself, giving at least a 50% chance of surviving. Back at Yunalesca, we once again get into the last phase, and this time we actually get incredibly bad luck. Remember earlier how we talked about a 100% chance not actually being 100%, but rather there being a 1 in 101 chance the status doesn't connect? Yeah, this is exactly what happened here. We switch armor like always, Yunalesca uses Hellbiter, but zombie does not connect, and the follow-up Mega Death KOs Kimahri yet again. Even though this is theoretically one of the more relaxing battles, this is starting to get frustrating. On the next attempt, we got Curaga instead of Hellbiter, then the self-inflicted zombie touch didn't land, and we go down to another Mega Death again. After going down during the initial phase 3 setup 2 more times, we finally get some decent luck with Yunalesca throwing out her attacks as she should, and eventually we're able to take her down for good. Yunalesca was really testing my patience here, but luckily this was nowhere near as bad as the first Temur encounter or the battle against Sanctuary Keeper. Either way, we now gain access to the airship, and this opens up a lot of possibilities. Theoretically, we could head straight into the sim battle, but we want to prepare a little bit before that. First of all, we begin the main capture push as we can now access all previous areas, so we will go through those and get everything caught up. Besaid only has 3 different enemy types, and with this being the first region of the game, we obviously have no issues capturing everything. Killiga Woods is equally straightforward, and since we never beat Lord Ocho before, we will do so now. With the Fire Spear, it only takes 2 hits and the enemy goes down. As noted earlier in the run, we're looking for the rare drop here, which would be 2 HP spheres when overkilling the enemy, so we just reload the save until we get the 12.5% drop, and then start to capture everything. We're going to catch 5 of each monster in every area, as we're going to need those later to unlock a very specific item type. We also revisit all the temples that we can access without running into Dark Aeons, since we can get several nice items here as well, like Agility and Luck Spheres. Me and High Road, as well as Jose High Road, are not an issue either, since we can still one-shot pretty much every enemy. We already covered the Thunder Plains and most of Macalania earlier, so we skip over those areas and head directly into Bikanal Island. Even though we have the first notably stronger enemies here like Sew or Sandworm, we can still get through the battles without having to use Mighty Guard, since Auto Potion alone is sufficient to keep Kimahri alive. Before continuing on with the next area, we make a short stop at the Macalania Woods. Since we now have access to the airship, we can do round 2 of the butterfly minigame, and unlike earlier, this time we actually do get the Saturn Sigil as reward, which means we can now fully power up our Spirit Lance. Once we reach Mount Gagaset, capturing monsters becomes a little more tricky since enemies now start doing significantly more damage. We usually have an evade and counter weapon equipped to make sure the incoming damage doesn't become overwhelming until we have weakened the enemies enough to where we can one-shot them with the capture weapon. A prime example of that are the grenades here. We have nowhere near enough strength to get them down in 3 hits, so we just let Kimahri counterattack the enemies since they won't grow from those, and then finish them off with the capture weapon when they are low on HP. Stronger enemies like the Behemoths require Kimahri to cast Mighty Guard first in order to actually take most hits without going down, but in combination with evading counter and auto potion, we're hanging in really well. Dark Flans have 220 defense, so we usually use the Spirit Lance to weaken them since it ignores defense, and then switch back to the capture weapon once its HP are in the range of getting caught. For the water enemies, I made it easy on myself as we just mixed trio of 9999 with the Wings of Discovery we got through the Chocobo race at Ramium Temple, and then just capture everything in a single hit. We get our last strength sphere of the challenge by revisiting Yojimbo's Faith, and then start collecting all the rewards from our capturing process at the Monster Arena. The only places we still have left to capture enemies are inside Sin, which we can't access yet, and the Omega Ruins, which is definitely the most dangerous area in the game. Before we head there though, we stay at the Monster Arena a little longer to battle the first and only species conquest of the game as we take on Fenrir. Now you might ask yourself, how are we even close to beating one of those creations with the limitations in our setup? Easy, we cheese them. Fenrir only uses 3 different attacks. Fangs of Chaos, which is a gravity attack that deals 93.75% of the character's current HP, while also inflicting Confuse, which Ribbon blocks. Fangs of Hell is an insta-kill attack which evade encounter can dodge, and Fangs of Ruin will only be used if a character is already confused, so in our case, never. And while Fangs of Chaos is percentage based, it can still KO a character if it crits, so we cast Mighty Guard to make sure that Kimahri is also able to survive critical hits as well. But the best thing about this battle is that we don't even have to get Fenrir's HP to 0. Fenrir can be doomed, and while the doom counter starts at 200, the battle is practically won at this point, since none of Fenrir's remaining attacks can KO Kimahri. As a reward for our victory, we get agility spheres, and those are particularly valuable as we need to increase our speed if we want to be able to get past Overdrive Sin. We do this battle several times and then fill all remaining blank slots on Kimahri's grid with +4 agility nodes, so we can hit a total of 45 agility, which would put Kimahri at tick speed 6, and this is probably something we should talk about. Earlier in the challenge, we already talked about how different abilities have different ranks, affecting how long it takes until you get your next turn. Tick speed is the secondary factor in the turn order calculation. In Final Fantasy X, your turn speed is not influenced by individual agility points, but rather the range you're in. The lower the tick speed, the sooner the character's next turn arrives. This is also why min-maxing guides recommend to only go to 170 agility, since this is the point where you enter the lowest tick speed, and more points into agility would provide no further benefit. 45 agility would put Kimahri at tick speed 6, so we can maximize the amount of turns we get against Overdrive Sin later. We also use a key sphere to unlock one of the lock nodes connecting Kimahri's grid to the others, placing our last +4 luck sphere there. And I can already see a few vocal people looking at this being like, no, technically this is not Kimahri's sphere grid, so this shouldn't be allowed. But I would argue otherwise. The locks are the connection between two grids and are therefore shared. This means that they can reasonably be considered part of Kimahri's section, so I would say using them to put stats on them should be allowed. Before heading for Sin, we head into the last accessible area for now to complete our monster capturing quest as we enter the Omega Ruins, and this is where we need to be careful because the enemies in here don't mess around. Soros only uses physical attacks, so we equip Evade Encounter to make sure it can hit us, and then switch it to our capture weapon when its HP get in range of one-shotting it. For Master Curl, we usually only try to capture one, hoping to survive long enough, and then run from the battle because their Blizzaga can one-shot Kimahri from full HP. Rave has 150 defense, so we switch into the Spirit Lance to get its HP down, and then switch into the capture weapon for the final hits. Monoliths only have physical attacks which we can handle with Evade Encounter, so again we keep the weapon on until they get low on HP, and then switch for the capture. Helma only has physical attacks, so they are negated by Evade Encounter as well, but Spirit uses strong elemental attacks, so we definitely need to watch our HP and manually heal up if we are in range of being KO'd with their next attack. Black elements are a bit of a lottery. With Mighty Guard up, they can't one-shot Kimahri, but if both of them go for Flare, the auto potion heal is not enough to keep us alive. Varuna possesses strong magical attacks, but with Mighty Guard up, we can take the hits without bigger problems. Master Tomberry is similar to the regular one we fought in the Stolen Faith Cavern earlier. We wait until the enemy is in reach of the party to avoid the counterattack, and with Mighty Guard up, we're safe from its attacks as long as it doesn't crit. Makia only has physical attacks, so again Evade Encounter takes care of the incoming damage, and we only need to switch weapons once their HP are in range of being captured. Adamantoise mostly possesses physical attacks as well, but for everything else, we have Mighty Guard that makes sure that Kimahri can withstand the incoming damage. The Puroboros are the last encounter we need, and simultaneously the most important one. Similar to Gaga said, we won't directly attack them since we're not able to down them within 3 turns, but rather just counterattack to prevent them from growing until they're only one hit off before switching into the capture weapon. Now, why is the Puroboros in particular so important? As funny as that may sound, we needed to beat Sin. If you remember early on, we mentioned that weapon drops from bomb enemies for some reason have higher base damage compared to everything else, and this increased base damage is exactly what we need. We want to gain a heat lance from them with 4 slots. 2 of them will always be occupied with Piercing and Fire Strike, but the other 2 open slots will be filled with increased strength and double overdrive. While they appear with packs in 3 in the Omega Ruins, the more efficient approach is to just battle single ones in the monster arena, since we don't have to go through tons of other encounters that way. And while we are battling it the first couple of times, let's take a look at the drop odds. Puroboros only has a 4% chance to drop equipment, then 50% for it to be a weapon, roughly 40% for it to be for Kimahri, and then 75% for it to have 4 slots. In total, this gives us a 0.589% chance of obtaining the weapon, so roughly a 1 in 170 chance per kill. While those aren't the highest odds, we definitely had worse, and considering that this is the second to last equipment grind we need to do, I was actually looking forward to that, especially since we can easily wipe them in a single turn with Stone Breath. On 4 times speed, this took roughly 3 hours and 17 equipment drops until we finally got the first Heatlance drop, but luckily it had 4 total slots, so now we got almost everything we need. We had to mark Alania and buy a blank 4-slotted weapon and then get going with customizing. From the blank weapon, we create a magic focused spear for Sin's fins by customizing 1 MP cost, magic booster, as well as magic plus 20 and 10% onto it. On the fire lance, we add strength plus 20% as well as double overdrive. With those new pieces of equipment, we're now ready to take on Sin. We start off with the 2 fin fights, and you can quickly see why we wanted to craft a magic spear for this. The fins are ranged, meaning our only options of dealing damage are either Lancet or Ultima. The fins have 65,000 HP, so with Lancet only dealing about 100 damage, this would take forever to take them down. With Ultima on the other hand, it's nowhere near as bad as we deal about 3,500 damage with each cast. To make sure we won't go down from the attacks, we set up Mighty Guard, and that is all we need. Auto Potion takes care of the healing after getting attacked, so we just spam Ultima until both fins are down. Up next, we head on top of Sin where we have to battle another Sin spawn and Sin's core. We switch to our new Fire Lance since the Sin spawn is weak to fire, set up Mighty Guard again, and then get going. The Sin spawn will close its shell once it drops below half HP and try to regenerate itself, but the Fire Lance is easily outdamaging the heals, so after a couple of attacks, the first target is already down. The core itself is not a big issue either. Its only attack is Gravia, which is percentage based and can't KO Kimahri, so if we keep our HP high enough to handle potential tier 1 counter spells, we are safe from being wiped, so we just continue on attacking with Kimahri until the core is beaten as well. With that, we are about to head into the final Sin battle against Overdrive Sin, and if you thought that the last couple of segments were not luck dependent enough, your wish is about to be granted now because Overdrive Sin is an RNG nightmare. With a first strike weapon equipped and tick speed 6 on Kimahri, we get a total of 26 turns before Sin will instantly KO the entire party, and with Overdrive Sin having 140,000 HP in total, we need to be fast, precise, and pray for good luck. On the first turn, we switch into the Spirit Lance for triple overdrive and KO Waka and Lulu immediately since we need to charge our overdrive as fast as possible. Since Sin is out of range for the first couple of attacks, we start casting Chinks to reduce the enemy's luck because again, we're going to be extremely reliant on critical hits. Once Sin has drawn in for the first time, it is enraged for a seed cannon attack. We still can't target it with regular attacks, so after casting the 5th Jinx, we switch into our new Fire Lance, which is now called Berserker, and throw out another seed cannon since our overdrive is already full again. Sin draws in for the second time, at which point it is close enough to hit it with all attacks, and here is where the big lottery comes into play now. There is little strategy to this battle from that point forward other than attacking the boss, casting seed cannon when Kimahri's overdrive bar is full, and pray for critical hits. Sin will counterattack every third hit, which deals about 900 damage per attack. This is the reason why we didn't go for the Spirit Lance in this battle, since its damage drops when Kimahri gets lower on HP, and with Auto Potion not triggering after every attack, the Berserker easily outdamages the Spirit Lance. I was pretty certain that we would not be able to beat it on the first attempt, and unsurprisingly, we didn't. So I started damage counting in my head for the first couple of attempts to get a basic idea what kind of damage ranges we usually land on at the end. As mentioned before, we need to deal 140,000 damage in total, and after about 10 attempts, it became clear that exceptional luck would be required to get through here. Depending on how many critical hits we get, we usually land somewhere between 120 and 125,000 before Sin uses Giga Graviton. So for most attempts, we're off by 10 to 15,000, which is quite a lot all things considered. then again, if a seed cannon crits, we can deal up to 10,000 damage instead of 5,000 in a single hit, so if our attacks crit on the correct turns, this might actually not be so bad. Well, it turns out that I was maybe a little overconfident in this thinking. Within the first 3 hours of fighting this boss, we only had 2 attempts that did above 130,000 damage, and both of them were closer to 130 than 140. On the other hand though, we only had like 3 or 4 attempts where we went under 120,000 damage, and while that really doesn't make any difference in the end, it looks like we have some kind of consistency in those fights at least. I wish I could talk more about strategic depth in this battle, but the reality is that once Jinx is set up and Sin is in range to get attacked, all we need is an exceptional amount of good luck. I would estimate that we need close to half of our attacks being critical in order to deal the damage needed to win. I kept counting damage in my head as I went through those attempts, and while we had a lot of attempts where it was already clear halfway through the battle that this wouldn't be enough, I kept on going until the end, hoping for a miracle turnaround in the late phases. Unfortunately, it never happened, but I was not going to let that get to me. I knew it was possible, and only a matter of hours, so just like in previous grinding segments, I just put on something on the side to watch so I won't go insane too quickly, and continued the grind, hoping for the best. It took a little more than 8 hours until we got a genuinely promising attempt. After setting up, we open up with a double crit seed cannon, and while the next 3 regular attacks didn't crit, we managed to get another one on the following seed cannon. We crit 2 more times on regular attacks, and at this point I started getting nervous and actually turned down the speed to regular, because I felt like this might be it. We crit on another seed cannon, and while the majority of regular hits didn't crit, I felt like we were on a really good pace considering we were getting absurdly good luck on the overdrive hits. We continue throwing out everything we have at Sin, and with literally the last possible attack before running into another Giga Graviton, we managed to take Sin down. And with that, the arguably hardest battle in the challenge is over. We are now inside Sin, so we only have 2 more bosses left to go until the challenge is completed. Before we head for the final Seymour battle though, we will go back to the monster arena for our final luck-based grind of the game. Early on when we went through the Dark Matter explanation, I briefly mentioned that we need Elemental Eater armor for a specific battle later on. Well, that moment is now. We return to Chimera Guys to get Elemental Absorb for Kimahri for fire, ice and water. Compared to earlier, we have a much easier time now with Kimahri having way more agility and some more HP, so there is no need to switch armor any longer for the physical attack either. With that being said, let's take a quick look at our odds for the drop. Chimera Geist is guaranteed to drop equipment, so we only need to hit the 50% chance for the armor and the roughly 40% chance for Kimahri. Since the only abilities on the armor are Elemental Eater ones, it doesn't matter all too much which attributes we roll since we want all 3 of them anyways, so this comes out at a total chance of roughly 20%, which compared to some of the earlier grinds are amazing odds. And while we got Fire and Ice Eater on the very first battle against it, it took another 13 attempts before we got Water Eater as well. To cover Lightning, we customized Lightning Proof with the 8 Lightning Marbles we got all the way back in Guado Salam during our first visit. We had to Makalania one last time to buy another 4-slotted armlet for Kimahri, which we're going to load with HP boosting abilities as we customize HP 30, 20, 10 and 5% on it. This will be needed to survive Seymour's ultimate attack, since it's classified as a special attack and therefore bypasses Shell. We also cleared 2 more key locks to put an extra HP plus 300 on each, and with that, we're set to head for the final Seymour battle. The pattern in this battle is pretty simple. Seymour will always attack with the element direct towards him for a total of 4 times, which is precisely why we acquired the Elemental Eater and Null armors earlier, so we can completely negate the incoming damage. Again, we start off the battle by casting Jinx 5 times, and then go for the attack with the Spirit Lance. Seymour has 180 defense, and considering we are at full HP for almost the entire fight, the Spirit Lance's defense ignoring property is definitely the best option to choose here. After being targeted 6 times, Seymour will start glowing, dispel the party, and prepare for Ultima. At this point, we switch into our HP raising armlet and throw a Mega Potion to be prepared for the attack. With the big HP boost, we can survive the incoming Ultima, switch into the next Elemental Eater armlet, heal up, and then continue attacking the boss. When we get close to the next Ultima, we need to watch out for our CTB. Since we have no haste for this battle, we lose a lot of turns, so we need to make sure to get at least 2 actions in before Ultima for the armor switch and the healing up. When Seymour drops below 20,000 HP, he will go for Ultima after being targeted 3 times already, which I didn't consider, and that ultimately led to our first game over in this battle. I didn't properly watch the CTB, so when Seymour prepared for Ultima, Kimahri only had 1 action before his next attack, so we couldn't heal up in time, and there goes the attempt. On the second attempt, I made sure to pay close attention to the CTB to always make sure we have 2 turns during the Ultima setup, oftentimes switching equipment instead of attacking to line up the next turn properly. With this, we continue hitting the boss and tanking the Ultima until Seymour eventually goes down for good, and we can finally send him to the far plane. With Seymour down, we only have 1 more boss battle left to go, but before we head towards Braska's final Aeon, some final preparation is needed. First of all, we need to go on 1 final capture run as we try to catch everything inside Sin. Some of the enemies found here already showed up in the Omega Ruins, so we can skip those. For everything else, we usually just set up Mighty Guard and then attack with the Spirit Lance until they get low on HP before switching into the creature weapon. With our increased higher HP pool and auto potion on our armlets, we don't have to worry about getting KO'd either. Occasionally, we need to throw another manual high potion after auto potion triggered, but other than that, we don't have that much to worry about. Once we caught everything, we return to the monster arena. Since we have captured 5 pieces of every monster in the entire game, we can now buy clear spheres in the shop, and we're going to need those to replace existing nodes on the grid. Even with our increased HP, we're nowhere near tanky enough to withstand BFA's onslaught of attacks, so we're going to start optimizing Kimahri's grid now with more max HP and also some more agility, since we want to hit a lower tick speed threshold. And the people that complained about the connected keysphere nodes earlier are probably going insane right now hearing this, but hear me out. There are several reasons why I think optimizing Kimahri's grid portion should be considered allowed. First of all, we have no way to boost our HP even further, so there would be no way that we could beat BFA with our current setup. The empty nodes have to be filled with agility spheres since we have no other way to get past Overdrive Sin. What's even more important in my opinion though is that we can only do this for the final boss of the game. As mentioned earlier, you can only buy clear spheres after capturing 5 of every monster in the game, and Barbatos is an enemy that exclusively shows up in the City of Dead, meaning that you can't even access them until clearing the final Seymour encounter. We are also never leaving Kimahri's grid even with the extended strategy, so technically, this challenge can still be considered own sphere grid, though the name Optimized Sphere Grid would probably fit better. But it's also the same acronym, so it all works out perfectly. Fortunately, we still have quite a few HP spheres that we got throughout the game and never used, and for agility spheres, we return to Fenrir to grind some more. The goal is to get a total of 62 agility in order to reach tick speed 5. To get there, we delete stats that we won't need any longer like accuracy, MP or magic. We also delete agility nodes that give less than +4 and replace them so we can squeeze out as much as possible. In the end, we end up with a little more than 6,500 HP, 62 agility, and 30 luck for a decent critical chance. With those stats, we should have a solid foundation for the final boss battle, so after selling all regular and high potions so that auto potion can use X potions for healing, we head through the City of the Dead until we reach Shekt, who has been waiting for a while, and I can't blame him after all the grinding we needed to do to get here. Shekt transforms into Braska's final Aeon, and the final boss fight of this challenge is on the way. We open up the battle by casting Mighty Guard since the Protect is going to come in very handy here, considering that BFA exclusively uses physical based attacks. In phase 1, Shekt will either use Shekt Beam or a left arm strike. Shekt Beam is the more favorable attack since it deals less than 500 damage and we're immune to the Petrify status thanks to the ribbon. Left arm strike is not that dangerous either, dealing about 1200 damage, but the delay on it can be annoying as it can result in BFA getting several turns in a row. This is the reason why we wanted to get on tick speed 5 to make sure we can recover and still get damage in and prevent check from delaying Kimahri until we get KO'd. Since we have the Spirit Lance equipped, Kimahri will also counter every left arm strike, which adds some nice damage on the side as well. When his overdrive is full, BFA will use Triumphant Grasp, which deals about 3700 damage, and due to us selling all potions except for X potions, the auto potion passive will use those to fully heal Kimahri when he drops into critical HP. The U Pagodas heal BFA for 3000 HP in total every time their turn comes up, so I was thinking about crafting a zombie spear first to counter that, but the combination of tick speed 5 and haste gives us more than enough turns to easily outdamage the heals. We continue on attacking the boss until phase 1 is down, Jack pulls out a huge sword out of his body, and we enter phase 2. And this is where things get a little more dangerous, initially at least. BFA's overdrive in the early parts of phase 2 will now do significantly more damage than before, doing a total of about 5700 damage to Kimahri, so once BFA's overdrive bar is full, we need to make sure to have Kimahri at max HP in order to tank the hit. In phase 2, BFA also gets access to a new attack in Blade Blitz, which is basically the AoE version of left arm strike. Unfortunately, we can't counter this, but with left arm strike being used 60% of the time, this is not a problem. Once BFA drops below half of his HP, he will switch up attacks again, now completely eliminating left arm strike and only going for Blade Blitz or Check Beam. He also gains a new overdrive now in Ultimate Check Shot, which is actually easier to handle since it's an AoE attack that only does around 4500 damage. With auto potion healing Kimahri to full immediately when he drops into critical HP, we can focus on attacking the boss, and it's only a matter of time until Braska's final Aeon is down for good, and the challenge is essentially complete. We now only have to go through the Aeons, which we mostly one-shot, and even if we miss a couple of times, with auto life now active, there is no way we can game over any longer, so once all of them are down, Yu Yevon finally appears and we enter the final battle of the game. And while I thought of battling Yu Yevon the regular way, I still decided to go for zombie here, so we switch weapons, inflict the status, and throw a Phoenix down to finish the battle. And that is it, everybody. We beat Final Fantasy X using only Kimahri and his own sphere grid. It took a ton of grinding and all kinds of strategies, but we made it all the way to the end. And at this point, I want to give huge shoutouts to everybody that came up with boss strategies for this challenge. Some of those strategies used are genuinely insane, and I'm not sure if I would have come up with solutions for some of the problems that were put in front of us. This was definitely one of the hardest, but at the same time, most interesting challenges I've done. Doing single character challenges in FF10 is a ton of fun, and after doing Lulu and Kimahri now, I'm also thinking of doing the other character for future videos, so let me know in the comments which character you would like to see next time. With that being said, special thanks go out to this video's top channel supporters Novarel, Shirker, Matthew Frack, Chipsel Naga, Hack, 30C25 and Mr. Sandman, as well as all other channel members and patrons. Becoming a channel member or joining the Patreon gives you 48-hour early access to all videos among other small perks, so if you want to support the channel even more, there are plenty of ways to do so. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the run as much as I did, and I hope to see all of you next time as well. Until then, take care.